He wanted the coat. He wanted to make use of the coat. He didn't want to throw the coat. And he found that he had enough fabric left in the coat to turn it into a jacket. So he snipped, 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 and he stitched, stitched, stitched. He snipped, snipped, snipped. Can you do that action with me? Snipped, 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 and he stitched, stitched, stitched. And very soon his jacket was ready. The tailor wore the jacket and he stood in front of the mirror. How handsome, how dapper he looked. And when he wore the jacket and he walked down the street, every head turned towards him. And everyone who was watching him had the same thought. Look at the tailor's jacket. We wish we had a jacket like the tailor's. The tailor started wearing that jacket everywhere. He wore it every day. He wore it in all seasons. And when you wear something every day in all seasons, you know what happens to it. Absolutely right. It got tattered and torn. But the tailor, the thrifty tailor, had an idea. He looked at the jacket and he realized that there was enough fabric left in it for him to turn it into a vest. Can you spot the vest the tailor is stitching for himself? Yes. So he turned his jacket into a vest. And when he wore the vest and he stood in front of the mirror, how handsome, how dapper he looked. And wearing that vest, when he walked down the street, every head turned towards him and everyone who was watching him had the same thought. We wish we had a vest like that tailor's. So the tailor started wearing this vest everywhere. He wore it all days of the week. He wore it every time in all seasons. You would have guessed by now what happened to the vest. Yes, you're absolutely right. It got tattered and torn. The tailor was very sad. But the tailor did not want to throw away his vest. He had an idea. He decided to make a button out of that vest. And he stitched that button with golden and silver thread. He stitched that button onto one of his favorite shirts. And when he wore the shirt with that button and he stood in front of the mirror, how handsome, how dapper he looked. And when he walked down the street, every head turned towards him and everyone who was watching him had the same thought. We wish we had that shirt with that fancy button just like the tailor. So the tailor started wearing this shirt with this particular button everywhere. He wore it every day in all seasons, and you would have guessed by now that one day he noticed that the threads he had used to stitch that button started fraying. The tailor was very sad. He removed that button from his shirt, and the tailor looked at it hard and he wondered what could he do with it. He thought and he thought. He thought hard. And just when he was thinking, a strong wind, a very, very strong wind started taking that button away with it. The tailor was terrified. The tailor was losing his favorite button. The tailor quickly grabbed the button in his fist. Yes, in his fist. And when he opened his fist, he looked at the button. Very little of it was left. And he wondered, what could he do with it? He decided to make a story out of it. A story that I shared with you. Thank you for listening. And as I roll and keep away this Patachitra, I want you to answer for me. When you were listening to this story, did this story trigger any emotion in you? If it did, what were those emotions? Can you pen down your thought? We can spend just 10 seconds doing that. Yes? When you were listening to the tailor's coat story, did any emotions surface? Yes, I can hear you. You felt happy. You felt sad when he was losing his garments. You felt excited when he was thinking about what he could do next. Yes, I like that answer. We felt empathy. Wonderful. Now, let me take you through a presentation. I will share some ideas on how you can use this Russian folktale, The Tailor's Coat, in your classroom. How can you integrate it in the curriculum? Can we have the presentation, please? Now, there's a reason why I chose this story. This story can be adapted to different age groups and it has potential for interdisciplinary learning. And that is why this story was chosen for, it can be a very important part of the curriculum. Now, when we look at the first point, the comprehension and speaking skills. Now, if after narrating this story, if you ask the children, what kind of clothes did the tailor stitch for the people of his town? Children, why were his clothes always tattered and torn? Why did the tailor not throw away the garments he stitched? Or a question like, what did the tailor do with the button in the end? So when you give such questions to the children and the children think and they answer, what do? They practice their speaking skills. And as an educator, you get an insight into their comprehension skills as well. Can we have the PPT, please? Now, writing and critical thinking is also triggered by stories. In this case, when you prompt students to create a different conclusion. For example, children, if he would not have created a story out of that button, what else do you think he could have done with it? Okay, so when you give such prompts and make children think, you help them practice analytical thinking. Character analysis and reflection is very, very important when you are talking about empathy in classroom. This is one skill that we all want children to grow up with. So let children discuss the tailor's traits, his personality traits. And I called him thrifty in the beginning, right? So you can ask children, what does that word mean? And if they think that are they as thrifty as the tailor? Do they know someone in their household who is as thrifty as the tailor? So by asking these questions, you trigger their thoughts and make the children analyze the character's personality, and by doing that, you take them closer to the character. And when the children are able to put themselves into the character's shoes, of course, we trigger empathy. Problem solving and math integration. Now, this is one of my favorite stories to teach all kinds of mathematical concepts in the classroom. You can have addition, you can have division, multiplication, subtraction, you can talk about measurements. I'll give you an example for measurement. Now, you can just tell the children that imagine that the tailor got 2 meters.